Hi, welcome back to the OnShape series. I'm Mr. Redmond, and today we're going to talk about making a drawing out of an assembly. This is going to take a few steps, but it's pretty cool, and it's also a little different than when you're making a drawing of a part. Because with a part, you're going to want a whole lot of detail about the shape and the size and um, the features and really highlight all the little bits and bobs of the part you have created. But in an assembly, the details aren't as important as the whole thing, right? So you want to show off all the parts and how this thing has been put together, not necessarily the little details of the thread inside of the thumb screw. So um, OnShape makes this really easy. Uh, it's pretty cool. Check this out. So, um, the first thing we need to do to do a drawing, interestingly, it takes place in the assembly in OnShape, and that is we need to create the properly formatted bill of materials, or BOM, BOM. The bill of materials lives right here on this side, on the right side of the viewing frame where the graphics are. You click on that, this thing pops off the side, and it gives us surprisingly little detail. It tells us item numbers, so it has made and assigned a number to each of these parts. So they've all been named for us before we made this part, this assembly, and they've all been numbered automatically by OnShape. It also tells us how many of them there are. So if you have one part like this screw and you have 10 of them, it would show 10 for the quantity. It also tells us the part numbers and descriptions, which we don't have put into the metadata here inside these parts because we don't care. That's not really part of our purview at the moment. So the part number and description columns we can remove. It defaults to part number and description because that's pretty important to engineers that deal with lots of parts. But since we're making these things like one at a time and individually, and we're not dealing with lots, we don't need them. So I removed those columns. But we should add a column because we want to know what these parts are. What is part one? It highlights there. I see what part one is, but what's the name? Um, and so we are going to add the name column. So you're going to come in here and add name to to this list, the bill of materials. Um, and and here we are. So we have quantity, item, and name of each of these parts. And the name here, of course, is a part number for the McMaster car thumb screw, but that's fine. I'll live with that. So we're going to make the bill of materials go away now because we don't need it here. Where we need it is in a drawing. So I'm going to open up a new element here and create a new drawing, and because we always do this, we're going to use the buoy metric template that we have created. Um, I believe the ANSI will also work for this, but the parts might be in metric, so I'm not sure. We're not going to do measurements, so it's not entirely necessary to choose one or the other. So let's find out where our parts are. So we have a couple places where you can get the parts from: the Part Studios, the Selfie Stick Part Studio, or the Thumb Screw. We don't want the Part Studios actually, because the Part Studios are just going to be the individual parts, um, and that is not what we want. We want to document our assembly, so we're going to click on the assemblies list, and we're going to click on the Selfie Stick assembly. We're going to want to put it in here, but look, it's really small. That's too small because we don't need the same number of views that we would normally use in an assembly or in a part drawing. So we're only going to really have two views probably, uh, and not a very many angles. So let's go to 1 to 4 see if that, and hit enter. See if that is a more appropriate size. That's pretty good. I imagine if we went any bigger than that, it's going to be um, too big. 1 to 3 is pretty cool too. Let's do 1 to 3. So I'm going to click this one down. So I'm really far over to the left, but you'll see why here in a moment because we have a lot of details to put in here. So I'm going to put this here, and then let's do another view next to it like this. And that's good enough for now. Um, we have a unique issue here, and we should have covered this before in parts drawings, but we haven't yet. But you see, there's a whole lot of stuff happening right here in this first most left illustration. Um, but this part is really big because the handle takes up a whole lot of space. So what we can do, and what I'm going to do now, is we're going to do what's called a detail view. And this acts like just drawing a circle over a zone on your drawing, and it blows it up to something bigger. So check this out. I'm going to click on this, the detail view, and I want to highlight this area here. So I'm going to click in the center of it, or as center as I can. And I'm going to bring out the circle a little bit, about right here. And now what I get is this thing that I can now place wherever I want is a zoomed in version of what's happening at the hinge. And so it says detail a scale 2 to 3, which is pretty awkward, but it'll work out for our use. I'm going to hit escape just to get out of whatever view I might be in. I'm going to pull it away because it's a little too close to the table here. And before I go any further on how to label these parts, you see this nice little circle shows up right here. We're going to do a bill of materials, which is this table right here. It looks like a spring inside of a box with an arrow, the bill of materials. Um, so we need a list of materials for what this assembly is. I'm going to click it, and you see this table appears, and I can just drop this right here in the corner, and I have our bill of materials listed right here. Now what I need to do is add labels all over this thing. Each of these item numbers, we need to figure out which one they are visually. And we do that. We don't measure anything. We don't do distances here. We are going to add, these are called callouts or bubbles. And they act a lot like little tiny little flags. So I can click on each part, and it's going to tell me what part number this is. You click on the part, and then you draw the bubble, and you can do this all over the place. The neatness rules that apply to drawings are a little less strict on bubbles and callouts. Having them at an angle is a good idea. And then we can also add them. You see why we did the detail view. We can add them to the detail view, which is really nice. And they're already automatically numbered, so we don't even have to do anything. We just have to label each of them. And you should label each of them. If you had multiple parts, you should label each of the parts unless there's just tons and tons of them where it's pretty obvious what they are and they're going to be the same. So here we are. So you should title this like selfie stick assembly drawing and export this as a PDF and turn it into me on Blend.